Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fat Muscle Project podcast. I'm John Gorman, one of your hosts today. We've got, as usual, Miss Sunshine herself, always happy, Miss Lisa Franz in the house. Lisa, what's going on? How are you
Hello.
and where are you? It's always the thing.
Well, and I am back in Bogota in Colombia, but I just spent a wonderful weekend getaway in Panama, which was incredible. Highly recommended as a vacation destination for anyone.
Yeah, it looks like you are having a lot of fun. I always like watching your stories because you go all these fun places and do all these fun things and just live life to the fullest, being an entrepreneur. So I love it. We've got a very special guest on the show today, Mr. Matt Temby. Matt, what's going on? How are you, man?
Hey John, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. How are things on your end?
They're good. As we're speaking, we'll probably drop this a week after. So our Halloween protein and pre-workout just dropped, and that it's gonna sell out so fast. Like it's just insane. We have emergency order being worked on now by our manufacturer. So I'm gonna do some excuse me, cowboy shit and drive up there and get it here in just a couple days to get us restocked because that's what we do.
Oh, it's
So
yeah.
yeah, things are good. A little nasally, little sick, got the sniffles, but we're gonna power through. Matt, let's go ahead and first of all start off and let everybody know a little bit more about you and what you do because I want people to understand you and I have a friendship. We've been friends for a long time, colleagues, but I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself first, and then I've got a couple stories I want to tell.
Yeah, cool. So I am a business owner. I live in Ohio. So I have three gyms. I have two in the suburbs of Toledo, and then another gym that is down in Cincinnati. I also work for a mentorship practice. So that business is called Two Brain Business, and I handle everything related to revenue, front end, back end. And I've been a mentee of that program for just north of 4 years, and I've been working for them for like 2.5 years. So those are the main things that I do, and then uh, work sometimes too, right? Like that's the bro in me.
Yeah. So this will be fun as we get in and we paint the picture and we just really kind of pull back the curtain on what it's like to own a gym, what it takes to own a gym. I think all of us we're all bros at heart and we've all always been in the gym and thought, you know what would it take to own my own gym? Or man, it'd be cool if I owned my own gym. And whether it's a small scale gym or a larger setup like you have, which is pretty impressive, or something, medium size like I had with the Anytimes, we're gonna dive deep into that today. Real quick though, you do have a superhero power that I would like for you to talk about because you're essentially a vampire that doesn't age or sleep. So can you talk to the fact that you were able to run by on very few hours of sleep, and then we'll get into the heart and the meat of the business.
Yeah, so I mean, how I met you is through my business partner in one of the gyms, Scott Stevenson. He was a client of yours. He's a natural pro, men's physique competitor, and I met Scott at a gym, and it was one of those moments where like he was clearly bigger than I was, and I was like, so we're either going to be like enemies forever, or like I have to be his best friend, and so I opted for best friend. So anyways, yeah, I at the time I was running stores for Target, and that's like my corporate background. Then I got into coaching online, similar to what you do. Not as good, but like similar. And so I was doing both of those things, and then I started to pursue gym ownership while I was still doing Target and online coaching. So yeah, like just by nature, there wasn't a lot of hours left to sleep, and I've gotten like slightly better at spending more time in bed, but like I'm not good at sleeping, so like rest quality is still like pretty low, and it's probably the dimples of why I still look the same age.
It's interesting because back in 2017, you did your show in Chicago, which was exactly 7 years ago. And I remember you got shredded. Like, dude, you were peeled. I really thought that you would be up there, and you were like you were up there in that top three in that class, somewhere in that area, like really had a good physique. But dude, I just remember the whole time, like, and you're going to talk about your job with Target here in a little bit because that will lead into owning gyms. Dude, you got by on such little amount of sleep and were able to get shredded. It was something that we always joked about because these days I harp on sleep. Like on this podcast, we harp on sleep, and you kind of fly in the face of that as someone that can operate on very low sleep. So anyway, just a fun little backstory on how we
Yeah.
got started in the prep and all those fun days. But listen, neither one of us have any time to prep these days. Like those days are gone. Like you don't
Yeah.
ever see yourself stepping on stage, do you?
Never, never. No, there's no upside in it for me at this point. So,
Not
and
being a
much,
business owner.
yeah, much respect to the people that do. I competed 7 years in a row from 2012 through 2017. Um, and that was like a big part of my life and a big part of my identity at that time. And then I coached competitors for a couple years, but obviously you've coached a lot of pros that have won world championships. If that is like your business model as an online coach, then that's
Yeah.
your thing. But like if you're coaching Gen Pop clients and then you're also coaching a mix of physique competitors, like the physique competitors are the most needy clients. Like they're going to take up more time, more energy, more demands, and depending on like what else you're doing, if that's all that you're doing, then that's awesome. I was doing multiple things, and I was like, man, like, am I really getting the fulfillment that I was seeking? And I realized I got more fulfillment from coaching Gen Pop clients.
Yeah. Let's talk about you as a businessman before you owned businesses. Give
Yep.
everybody a real quick backstory on what you did with Target.
Yeah, so I started with Target when I was 22. I was they had like assistant store manager. So I was under assets protection, which was like the smallest team that they could give me because they're like, he doesn't have a bright future. So they just kind of like hid me in the corner. And then there was one of my peers left. She ran like the logistics team, which generally speaking for a Target store is the largest team. So like up to 100 to 150 team members. We were going through a remodel at the store at the time. And so I found traction just through like kind of grinding through. I wasn't a very good leader at that time because I was really like my first leadership role outside of sports. And then I started building momentum, like my team started getting good and my district and my group. So districts generally like 15 stores, group would be like 70 to 100 stores. They started asking me to do like trainings for other people that were in my role for logistics, and then eventually had the opportunity to promote to take on my own store. So I was running a store of close to 300 team members, doing $50 million a year when I was
Wow.
24,
Wow.
which is like a lot of responsibility. And at that time, I was still like making some poor life choices. I had struggled with alcohol for a long time, and so when I realized like the weight of my job. And that like I was the person that people were talking about at the dinner table. And so like how I treated people really mattered, and the things that I said, whether I was thoughtful about it or I was careless about it, like that carried a lot of weight for those people's lives. And so I really realized in that business of running Target stores that the best way to get the outcome that Target desired, which was like more sales and like a really good guest experience, was I could take care of my people and I could do whatever I could to make their lives better. In turn, they would do whatever I would ask them to do, like to take care of our guests. If we took care of the guests, it would drive sales. And so that was like really my philosophy of leading is like take care of your people. Let's go to war together and see what we can accomplish. And the other things that I learned through my time at Target was like systems, right? Because you look at 2,000 Target stores across the US, like you go into one in California, you go into one in Florida, like the type of people there might be a little bit different, right? Because like two different state cultures, but the way that those stores look, the way that those stores operate are exactly the same.
Yeah.
And so, I learned the value of systems. I learned how to lead people through a lot of mistakes. And I had good mentors. Like I had some really bad, uh, I would call them bosses. Like I believe that there's like a boss, which is somebody that's just like an order giver. And then a leader is like somebody
Yeah.
that puts their arm around you and like helps you grow and develop and like invests in you because they see potential and they're trying to help you as a person. So I had a couple like really influential leaders in my life that really helped me grow at Target, and that helped me prepare for business ownership. Now, the thing that it didn't prepare me for is again like if you think about the things I just said of how I led, it was like very operational based. It was very team based. and culture based, but I didn't drive sales through like selling. It was like, hey, if we keep the shelves are full, like kind of what you have with Blueberry right now, like if you keep it on the shelf, like people are going to buy it, right? There's like high demand. It's a special edition flavor. Like people want that. If like your team shows up and they're there for work and they're happy, like they're going to do the things that you need them to do. But like we weren't good at selling. And so
Yeah.
that comes into play when you actually own a gym. But I won't dive into that just yet.
I want to bring something up very important. Um, I've always known this about Target, but when you say guests, that's a customer. And a lot
Yeah.
of people don't think about their customers, their clients, or whatever is the term guests. And I remember reading one of my favorite books of all times, Console Wars, Sega versus
Yeah.
Nintendo. And the
Yep.
relationship with Target was huge for Nintendo. And I
Was
remember Target always, like, they had some conflicts there, but Target was always like, hey, listen, these are our guests. They kept
Yep.
driving the point home, driving the point home. And the Nintendo execs were like, wait, what? Guests? What do you mean? Like, just thinking of people in that fashion, has that helped you owning gyms the way that you look at your gym members?
For sure. And I was part of that culture with Target for 9 years. And the majority of my time that I was with Target, like if you cut me open, like I'd bleed little bullseyes. And so I was drinking all the Target Kool-Aid. And but it was how you approached interactions with complete strangers. Like we were selling toilet paper and plungers, which up until like 2020 was like pretty low scope. Obviously, like added more value when COVID hit, but you weren't really making a huge difference on people's lives. However, the role that we did play is that we could be like a highlight of their day because they're choosing to leave their homes. They can go get their household essentials like their Clorox bleach and their toothpaste anywhere, but they've chosen to spend their time with us. And like we need to welcome them in, and really like that goes one layer further. So I learned this through a mentorship program I had gone through back in 2016. There's three stages of a relationship. There's like a relationship where you're tolerated, which is like the worst kind of relationship,
Yeah.
right? Like nobody really thrives in that situation. There's a relationship where you're welcomed, which is like, people are smiling and like it's better than being tolerated. But then there's like a place where you're celebrated, where people are excited to see you and they put you up on the pedestal, and they make you feel special. Like think about people that struggle in their personal life and they don't have like a lot of wins in that area. If you can be a bright spot in somebody's day, like man, that goes a long way. Especially from a business perspective, if you're trying to create loyalty, if you know, like if you just look at like Walmart and Target, you're probably going to have a better experience at Target because that's built into the culture. It's an expectation for team members, and for the leaders to drive that. At Walmart, like they're playing a different game. They're playing a volume game with pricing.
Totally get it. And it's huge with loyalty. One other thing, and then we're going to move on to talking about your first gym.
Yeah.
I know, owning gyms, owning businesses, doing the things that I do, there's things that it sounds like you learned at Target, leading a huge team, right, of
Yeah.
employees. How much was that important to you learning how to lead people? Because these gyms that you have multiple, people working there and trainers and staff. Not all of us are great at that. I am not. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, right? I
Mhm.
like to work on the business, not in the business.
Yeah.
I do have people that I manage at this point with Fat Muscle, but I've got Jacob Klessens who's sitting right out here, phenomenal manager. Like I've had phenomenal managers that handle employees and all that stuff, so I can work on
Yeah.
the business, not in the business. Um, and I never really had training like this. So I think that helps people identify what kind of leader they are. And if they're not good at something, find somebody that's good at managing and leading. How important was that with you owning these, not just the first gym, but multiple gyms, learning your leadership stuff there?
Yeah, I mean like the businesses would have failed. Like we'll get into the story and they were on the point of failing anyways. But they would have failed if I didn't have that skill set. If that wasn't a strength of mine, like I'm good at communicating with people and building community. And that was why I decided to open a brick and mortar gym because I was like, oh, I think that this would be scalable if I can leverage these two things that I'm really good at, plus something I really love, which is fitness, and I can open those doors to other people and create a place where people are welcomed,
Yep.
and where they're celebrated, really going above and beyond what they can get like out of Planet Fitness. Like Planet Fitness is like you're kind of tolerated, right? And like
Yeah.
for some people, that's all they need. So if you can make something really stand out, that was the focus. So going back to that, if I didn't know how to invest in people the way that people invested in me, I would have struggled. If I didn't know how to hold people accountable without being like emotional about it or like
Yeah.
lashing out, like, hey, these are the expectations. Like, here's what I need from you. If you can't meet those expectations, that's fine. We can shake hands, we can part ways as friends, but like, I can't invite you to stay on this team, if you can't do X, Y, and Z. Like, a lot of people struggle with that because they've never been in that position.
Yep.
Then suddenly they go and typically I think this is probably a little bit different in the anytime world because that is a franchise, but a lot of times like you look at a CrossFit gym, somebody goes from the ascension to gym ownership is like they were a client, then they were an athlete, then they were a coach, and then that coach is like, my gym owner is like not around very often, or I feel like these things could be better. And they don't understand that the reason that that gym owner is not around is because that gym owner is broke, and like they have a lot of stress and anxiety, and it's hard for them to even show up and be in their business because they're going to lose all of their shit.
Yeah.
And so like then this coach is like, well, I have a stronger relationship with all of these clients. I'm just going to take the ones that are loyal to me. I'm going to go down the road, get this warehouse. I'm going to start my own thing. And then they get kicked in the mouth because they're like, oh, I didn't realize that being a good coach is not the equivalent of being a good business owner. It's
Yeah.
from, the book E-Myth Revisited. It's called The Technician's Curse. Just because you're good at wrenching on cars doesn't mean that you're going to own a good body shop.
Yep.
Right? Those two things are mutually exclusive.
Yeah, dude, 100%. Wow. We have a lot of coaches that listen to the show, and you're 100% right. Like somebody can be a great one-on-one trainer, but that doesn't mean that you have the chops to go own a gym or to scale a business with multiple coaches. Like we won't
Yeah.
spend a lot of time on that, but that's such a good point. Let's talk about your first gym. What
Yeah.
year was it? And take us through the details of that, because there's a lot of people right now that want to open a gym, but they don't really know where to start. So just give us all the details on that.
Yeah, so I'll kind of make this brief, and then if there's more details that you want, just let me know. So I was still running stores for Target. I was coaching online clients at that point. I probably had about 50 clients that I'd carry with me at any given time. So like, for most people, that's like a pretty decent book of
That's good.
business.
Yeah.
And so then I started looking at like how do I get into fitness full time? There was an opportunity with a company that's in the same industry that you're in, and like we had crossed that bridge a couple times, and I had clarity that that wasn't going like uprooting my life and like moving across the country for that wasn't going to be the right fit. And so I was like, all right, cool. Like, how do I do this? So I reached out to a guy that I went to high school with, and he had opened a gym in our hometown, and then he had franchised. And so there was like 20 locations. So I had never been in one of the gyms before. So I called him and I was like, hey, do you need like help on the corporate side of like building systems and like leading people, right? Like that was what I was good at. And he's like, no, man, like we're just franchising. And I had zero interest in opening a gym. And then I was like, interesting. So I went up and I spent a day with him at a couple locations, and I'd never done group fitness before. And I was blown away by my experience because like these people, like just these moms and dads, like there weren't really any athletes in there. They loved what they were doing, and it
Yeah.
beat my ass. Like I wasn't in
Yep.
I was like in bodybuilding shape. I was not in shape for that. And I remember that night I just had clarity, and I've been praying a lot about it, but I was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. So that night I drove home from Michigan down to Ohio, and middle of the night, it's like 3 a.m. I'm just driving around my town looking for empty buildings, and I made a list and I started calling the next day. And I like hadn't signed the franchise agreement yet, but then we went through the negotiation process, which like for a franchise, there's really not like negotiations. It's just like this is what it is. This is what you get. So I signed in May of 2018, and then found my location in July. And then I opened at the end of August, or I'm sorry, end of September. I opened on September 28th of 2018. Now at that time, again, I'm still running a Target store and I'm coaching online. And there was a partnership that I had with like a large influencer. And so we had a new group of challengers coming through like this 12-week program. And he had sold like 30 people. And we had a meeting like a couple weeks before of like, hey, the gym is opening. Like I'm gonna not be able to service this many people. And like that week leading up to, he sold like 30 people into like this high ticket coaching program. And I had to program for all of these people to start on Monday. My gym opened on Saturday. So I was up from Saturday morning all the way through until Monday at 8 a.m. when I went into my Target store. And then I coached at my gym on like the first day during the week that night. So I was up for like close to 3 days in a row and was just getting my ass beat for that first season of gym ownership is pretty brutal.
I love stuff like that. I literally, as stressful as that sounds, and Lisa's over there smiling her big, shaking her head. She's like, dude, this is awesome. Like, I love this kind of stuff because there's one thing that you said that I want to get to, but I love this because you have the chops, like you have the DNA. So many people just do not. I guarantee you did that. And you're like, dude, this is just what we have to do. This is what we do. Like, you're not going to complain. You're just going to get it done. One thing that you said, you were driving around at 3 a.m., looking at locations, doing that stuff. Literally 2 nights ago, I'm stuck in my house sick and I had to get out, but I'm trying to find a new headquarters because we're 9 months into a lease here that I'm supposed to be at numerous years and we're blowing out. Right. But
Yeah.
at 3 a.m., I'm already out looking at other locations at 3 a.m. So I don't have to be bothered. It's that type of DNA that you see with people that they're able to sustain this, right? Like they've got the chops for that. And it's not, I'm not trying to, you know, make myself look good. I'm just saying like there's a certain level of hunger. And
Yeah.
when somebody has hunger like that, I always see those people win. So um that was the first gym.
Yeah.
And go ahead and walk us through any of the details that you want to tell us about the first gym and then when you decided to open gym two and what that looked like.
Yeah, so initially the first gym was just like a group training facility, right? It was a franchise, like you had one service and you sold group training. And it was a tiered pricing structure, which 10 out of 10 don't recommend. Because you're in a service business that has low profit margins anyways. Like if you're
Yeah.
doing any kind of like fitness business with brick and mortar, if you're hitting like 30% profit margins, you're doing really well. And I didn't know that at the time, right? Like I just came in guns blazing. Like this particular franchise didn't have like great systems or structure, which was a miss on my part. Like that was just oversight. I saw like top line revenue. I'm like, well, there's got to be some profit in here. This would be great. I'll be able to leave Target eventually and just like be fitness full time. I went in with blinders on, and that was a massive mistake that almost cost me a lot, almost cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. I almost lost this house that I'm standing in, and definitely made my life very stressful. So because if you're giving discounts, like when people are first signing up and you're like, hey, this is lifetime pricing, you gotta be careful what you say. Because if your business is going to go under and you need to change those prices, like you don't want to, the discount was your profit, which means that you're servicing these people essentially for free. They're covering the rent and the utilities and the payroll, but you're not getting paid. So how do you live? And if you're not still at Target and if you still don't have online clients, which again, that's a hard balancing act to do well at all of those things. Because at some point, like you're going to start dropping things and then your performance is going to drop. So that was gym number one. Now, gym number two actually came on pretty fast. It came about, a friend of mine, he was opening a large, it's a trampoline park. So they had been looking for space locally and they couldn't find anything. There was an old Best Buy building that Hobby Lobby was in that same plaza, and Hobby Lobby wouldn't give away the rights for this trampoline park to go into this like vacant Best Buy building. So they had been working with a commercial realtor, and so they went down to Cincinnati, and this commercial agent asked him, he's like, hey, just out of curiosity, do you know somebody that would be interested in buying a gym? And he's like, yeah, I know a guy. I was the guy. And so I get a call, and again, so I have three things that I'm doing. I'm like at a high level leading Target stores, got a lot of online clients, and I have this new business.
And
And
you're
you
not
know my
sleeping. And you're not
and
sleeping.
not sleeping. And John, you know my DNA, so you already, even if you didn't know how the story unfolds, like you know that I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm at least interested.
Yeah.
So we go down to see this gym, and it's like the third world country of gyms. Like it's a big box gym. It's about 20,000 square feet. So like it's freaking huge, right? Like it's a big space. And they don't have water. Like there's no running water in this building. There's like no staff. It's like it's disgusting. It's filthy. Like the dirtiest gym you have ever seen. It is that. Um, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, like there's probably a way we can make this work. And like I have no idea how I'm gonna do this because it's 4 hours from where I live.
Yeah.
So at the time, we're like, okay, well, I can't physically be down there all the time. The friend and his business partner for the trampoline park, they're like, we have families, we have these other businesses, like we can't be down there either. And I was like, all right, well, we need one other person. And so I called Scott Stevenson,
Yep.
who was, he had been living, all over the world at the time, and he was in Thailand. And I was like, hey, got this opportunity. Like you can get, 25% ownership, but it's contingent on you moving from Thailand to Cincinnati, Ohio. And he agreed to it without even seeing it. And so that was like the acquisition. So we bought this gym. It was part of a chain that was going through a bankruptcy. And like the guy that had owned the chain had scammed everybody, right? Like it was a very bad
Yeah.
situation. It was like the worst character and ethics. Like that's what happened in this situation. So we were able to get a good deal on the gym, but we saw that it was losing a ton of money because the rent was so high, because the space was so big,
Yeah.
and it just wasn't profitable. But we're like, we'll make it work. But none of us knew how to make a gym profitable. So
Yeah.
that was how we acquired gym number two.
Let me ask some questions here.
Yeah.
Because this is stuff that I'm trying to think about the listeners who haven't, they don't really know of these things to look for. One, I want to talk about getting to break even, but first, this second gym was a prior gym. There's starting your own gym. I want people to realize that starting your own gym from scratch with no members, you have no money coming in. It
Zero.
takes a while to get to, X number of members. Maybe it's 300, 400, 500, whatever the number is. You have to get to a certain amount of number of members to break even because
Yeah.
you don't have money coming in. Buying a gym that has a member base, at least that's baked in, and you have some people. Now, you said this was such an awful gym.
Yeah.
I'm sure quite a few people had left. Do you remember what the member base was like? Did you have some decent revenue coming in to at least pad that when you started the second one?
Yeah. So again, like I made a lot of mistakes. And so because there hadn't been staff, we didn't put two and two together, that like what the computer showed as active members, we didn't assume that like a lot of these people have probably tried to cancel and they just have not canceled them.
Yeah, yeah,
And so when we bought the gym and then we staffed it, it was like all of like literally hundreds of phone
yeah,
calls coming in like cancel, 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 cancel. And we're like, oh, this is going to get way worse. And we
yeah,
were already like, we bought it knowing it was already going to lose money. And then like you go from bad to worse real fast.
yeah,
So there was, it's kind of like a Crunch Fitness is probably like the most applicable model. And so it was low ticket fitness, like I think the
yeah,
prices were $9.99 and like $14.99 at the time. So we went in, we painted things, we fixed like all the broken equipment, like patched up all, got new padding on everything, cleaned everything, got the water bill paid, started staffing, like treated people like human beings. And so then we went through like a grand opening in March. So we had bought it in December of 2018. So March of 2019, like grand opening, even though we had been open during like all of this. And then we went through a price increase. We lost some people, but like the price increase was beneficial because like you have to run the math on that of like,
yeah,
okay, if we lose 100 people at $9, but like we bring everybody up to, I think we went to $14.99 and $19.99 at the time. Um, the math worked out on that. So like we started making a little bit more money, but we weren't selling enough new memberships to get us out of this massive hole. Like if you go in, like the first location is high ticket fitness. So we're selling for like on average at that time, we were selling for about 120 a month. And then we're selling for like on average, like $12 a month. So you
Yeah.
have to sell a lot of memberships at $12 a month for you to get out of like a several $1,000 a month hole
Yeah.
versus like, cool, I can sell 10 of these and I can make up $1,500 pretty fast. So yeah, it was an uphill climb, but it was not profitable for several years.
Yeah, a lot of people, there's this term called due diligence. When you buy any business, I'm in the process of doing that now with something that I'll tell everybody about in the future. There's this process of due diligence that you go in, you look at the numbers, you look at the P&Ls. With gym memberships, like you look at the gym memberships, and a lot of people, if you're not sure, and I'm sure this wasn't you, Matt, but a lot of people listening, if you're looking to go in and buy a gym, you need to look at the P&Ls that go with the tax returns, first of all, so you know what the true P&Ls are, because anyone can make a gym look profitable or at break even. But the other thing is the memberships. I could go in at the Anytime Fitnesses that I had, and I could add 150 memberships to ghost people if I wanted and make it look like, hey, this thing's got 1,000 members, for example, when it maybe only have 750.
Yeah.
It's those things that I want our listeners to pay real close attention to. You have to do your due diligence. And if you don't know what to do, hire a consultant to help you. Like I do that all the time. I consult people and help them. I look at the numbers with them. So anyway, long story short, so you've got a couple gyms. Let's talk about getting to break even, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that the next part of this story then, is getting somewhere to break even? How did you get there?
Yeah. So I left Target in the summer of 2019. So I had been in gym ownership for almost a full year at this time. I had stopped coaching online like right around January, February of 2019. So that was like 4 months of doing like all of it. Because I just added this 8-hour round trip. So I'll add this to the story because John, I know you love stuff like this. So Scott moved down to Cincinnati. And my agreement was I will be there 2 days a week. Well, I work at Target 5 days a week, right? And then I have this other gym that I'm at, like basically when I'm not at the store and when I'm not doing check-ins with clients. So I moved my days off. So it used to be like rotating weekends, but I was like, I need every Tuesday and Wednesday off. So I would drive down on Tuesday morning. Again, it's a 4-hour trip from my house. I'd get there at the gym around like 10 in the morning and I'd be there until like 10 at night. And I'd go, so we had rented an apartment through the business and it was a 1-bedroom apartment. So like Scott had his bedroom because that's where he lived. And I would sleep on a single high air mattress in the living room. And so I would sleep on the air mattress and then I'd get up and like 5, 6 in the morning, go back to the gym and I'd stay until about 6 at night. And then I'd drive 4 hours home. And then I'd make sure things were set and ready to go for my other gym in the morning. And then sometimes I would coach. Sometimes I would just go straight into the Target store and I'd do my 12-hour days and then I'd come to the gym. Right. So like that was what my life looked like for almost a year. I was having all kinds of health issues.
Yeah.
And so in July, the doctors, like they did some stuff on my heart and they're like, hey, you're not going to die because you have like something seriously wrong, but like the way that you're living. Cause I was consuming about a gram of caffeine a day at
Yeah.
that point, which is a lot of caffeine because I
Wow.
was sleeping for 4 hours and my stress was very high because I would go from working at Target to coaching at the gym to dealing with some bullshit at the Cincinnati gym or doing check-ins. And so like you were always switching hats and you were always on, which is very high stress. So, summer of 2019 through until 2020, like I was trying to get into like a routine because now I don't have structure of Target and I don't have a paycheck from Target because that was covering the losses from the gyms. And then COVID hit and lost about 100 members. So we had like over 200 members at the studio at that time, which is a lot of members, but we weren't profitable because the pricing was screwed up. And then at the other gym in Cincinnati, like we were still losing a bunch of money. So all of that got significantly worse during COVID. So in Ohio, we were closed for about 4 months. We opened at the end of June. And I had about 12 weeks left before I was going to file bankruptcy. Like I was out of money. I hadn't had a paycheck in over a year. And like I was living off of my savings. So it was pretty dire straits. I was set to go to a cousin's wedding in Kansas City, and we have like a very small Toledo airport. And so my mom drove down. She was going to fly with me. and we missed the flight on a Friday morning because I was coaching at the gym. And uh, the way that my life was, like, you just go from one thing to the next, and I didn't double check my calendar. Like, I hadn't taken any days off from the gym. And
Yeah.
so this was the first time I was leaving the gym, and I didn't know when my flight was. And so we missed a flight out of an airport like 20 minutes from my house. I cried all day. So we had to go up to Detroit. We had to get connecting flights. And so it took us about 13 hours to get to Kansas City. And that night, I was scrolling kind of like mindlessly through Instagram, and it was in the middle of the night. It was around like 1 a.m. And I found this ad for this business called Two Brain Business. And it was different than like a gym launch, which was like was basically a gym marketing agency back in 2019, or I guess
Yeah.
2020. They weren't doing any like form of coaching at that point. And I was like, this is a little bit different. And so I went down the rabbit hole that weekend, got as much information on them as I could. And I booked a call with them on Monday, and I started that day. It was a program that was over $10,000 at the time. I did not have money for it. I put it on a credit card, and I'm like, look, this is either going to work for me, like it's worked for all these other people, or I'm the problem because I'm the common denominator between these two gyms. So either I'm going to get better as a business owner and these people are going to teach me, or it's not going to work out. So that was the tipping point, because I lacked knowledge, skills, and experience on how to be a successful, profitable gym owner. Everybody in my community in the other gym were having a great time because they were getting a great service, and they had a great experience, but I was dying. And so I was having the worst time. So
Yeah.
finding mentorship and having somebody, like you said, like a consultant or a coach working one-on-one with you to help you build systems, to help you start to do marketing, help you do sales. We'll get into that stuff here in a minute. But that was the big switch that got flipped for me, because I wasn't doing those things. And you have to have sales and marketing if you're going to have a business. You have to.
Yeah. It's tough, man. There's so many topics. Like, if we just wanted to have a podcast that was just about how to have successful gyms, we could literally have just a separate podcast with numerous episodes on this stuff. So I'm trying to keep it more
Yeah.
macro view,
Yeah.
if I can, because I start want to like drill in on this. I'm like, all right, we've only got an hour, so I could do this all day. Let's talk about number 6. You have the notes pulled up in front of you, Matt. Let's talk
Yep.
about number 6 and 7 here.
I
And
just
then,
I just have one thing I want to add here. What I love about this, about the last thing that you just mentioned, Matt, was that you invested in your future even though you were broke, or it looked like you were broke. And there is a fine line between going out and spending money on stuff that doesn't matter at the time. Like, you could have thought, oh, I'm gonna get the newest machine, maybe that's gonna pull us out of the hole in this gym, or I'm gonna do this and that. But you thought long term, and you really thought about, okay, like you said, you took ownership. You were saying, if I am the problem, then I want to know about it too, but I'm going to go out and get help. And I think that's really something to take away for the listeners, because oftentimes we either blame others, we blame the circumstances, or we think, oh, I don't have the money for XYZ, without thinking about the long-term benefits that we can get from coaching, or of any kind.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's like dieting for your first show without having a coach. Like, you
yeah.
just don't know how to get to where you want to be. So pay an expert to lead you there.
I'll go on record to say this. The mentors that I've had, like especially the very good mentors I have, the people I've learned from, they all have something in common, and that's they're always seeking ways to go out and get better and learn new things. So they're always investing in themselves. So, and we just see that in the coaching industry. We see that with everything that you just said. It just is what it is. So yeah, if you want to tackle number 6, 7, and 8 here in the show notes,
Yep.
that would be awesome.
Yeah. So, we were talking about saving the gyms, right? So I invest in mentorship. I learned how to do marketing. And like the biggest fail for most gym owners is like word of mouth. That's how I grow, word of mouth. But they don't even have structure behind that. So it's really what I hear is like, oh, you have a hope and a prayer,
Yeah.
and you're just hoping that people are going to find this thing. And your customers or your guests, it is not their responsibility to grow your business. Like, they're a consumer of your product or service. It is your job as the business owner to grow your business. you're the hero of your story. Nobody's coming to save you. And so I had to learn that. So, like my sales process was, I hope somebody buys. All right. Well, like in
Yeah.
fitness, when somebody's starting out, and John, I mean, with Gen Pop clients that you've had, this, like these people are scared. They've had like probably trauma in the past of like starting and failing, disappointment in themselves. And so you have to give them an onboarding process that hits the pain points and solves those problems. If there is no problem, there is no sale. So instead of like talking about goals for, let's say, somebody that's been obese their entire life, well, we can talk about like what's life is like when you're 100 pounds lighter, but like that shit doesn't stick because they have no reference point. They don't know what that's like, but they do know what it's like to not be able to wear any clothes, to have like shame and have shitty energy and have shitty sleep. And like they do know what that stuff is like. So those are the problems you solve. You don't take them to the top of the mountain and say, hey, how nice is this? They've never been to the top. So like they can't buy that. They can buy a solution to these things. So when I learned those things and started implementing those, the gym started to turn around. I started tracking my metrics, which I had never done before. So I was making decisions from my heart, which like that's great for like a short period of time, but like you need data so you can make real decisions that take your business to where you want it to go. Which if I want to help more people in my communities, I have to have a sustainable business. If it's not profitable, it's not sustainable. If it's not sustainable, it goes away and I can't help anybody.
Right.
So like, you have to build this for the long term. And like, I think in the fitness industry specifically, we have like this noble cause of like, I don't have to make money. You do. Because like, how are
Yeah.
you going to feed your family? How are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to have a quality of life that you want to have? Because like we can grind, that's great for a period of life and for certain things, but you can't grind like this to survive forever. Because then you'll just quit and you'll go back to Target.
Can I just say something? I'm gonna be quote unquote the asshole, but it's not really being an asshole.
Yeah.
People that have this noble quote unquote noble stance of, oh, I don't need to make money, but no one successful says that, by the way. I just want our listeners to understand. People that don't make money say that. And it's because that they don't make money. Like no one successful will ever say that. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't need to make money. Like, no, like we're in the business to, if you don't make money, you can't help people. Like, I don't
Yeah.
care what anybody says. So anyway, off that soapbox, go ahead with the next one here.
Yeah, so I'll kind of fast forward. So the gym started to turn around fairly quickly through mentorship. Like in the first 12 months of mentorship, in gym number one, I doubled revenue. So we went from like 160 to 330 in 1 year
Oh
uh,
wow.
in top line sales. So like a pretty big shift
Yeah.
because like there was a lot of good foundations, but like there was things that were missing. And so like we kind of took off like a rocket ship. And during COVID, so this is an important part for the gym in Cincinnati. Our building had gotten sold, and it was going to be torn down. So like we opened in at the end of June. We had to be out of this 20,000 square foot building by middle of September. And we had signed a lease to do a full build out of a pretty large building. It was like 7,500 square feet. And Scott and I put like basically all of our savings into building out this building. And so in September, we had to move all of our stuff from a 20,000 square foot building into storage lockers. Like imagine like the nightmare
Wow.
that was.
Holy
So we
shit.
move all this stuff. The gym closes again, so more people are canceling because we don't have anywhere for them to train. We opened just after Christmas, so we had to move from a storage locker into this new building. We spent over 200,000 on the build out, and so then that building, we went from like super high rent, like about 16,000 a month, to under $2,000 a month. So this huge swing, and suddenly we were profitable. And so that was, so even though like it seemed like a kick in the mouth at the time, it turned out to be like a huge blessing for our business. Now we risked everything to make it happen, but it was a calculated risk because like we had ran the numbers. So that was a big change for location two. Now at this point, like gyms are doing okay. We're finally starting to pay ourselves from Cincy. I buy land to build a new location for gym number one. And so like there's going to be a ground up construction. And anyways, this project, we're like on budget for it. The war in Ukraine breaks out, oil prices skyrocket. We needed a lot of parking infrastructure. the budget jumps up by like almost 850,000. So now I'm way over budget. So now we're looking at like almost a $3 million project, and I could not cut costs enough without like just cutting down the whole building to make it fit. So I get stuck in this construction loan for land that is not usable. So that was another fail because I thought that we had everything that we needed. Like this is going to be the long-term home here, and then it went poorly. And so because of that, and I got stuck, and I'm like, I don't know how to expand this location. Like I wanted to own the asset of like owning the building. There was a yoga studio that was for sale in the next town over. So I buy that building and that business, give my hand at yoga bar and Pilates, which is not my avatar. It had been losing money, about $50,000 a year for the last 4 years. But I really wanted the real estate. So I'm like, cool, we'll make this work. 9 months, actually 10 months of continuing to lose money, of like, that's not my niche. Pulled the plug on that, refunded everybody for the last 2 months because I didn't want to hear people bitching. And I'm like, look, here's more money than what you've actually paid. So like there should be no complaints here. I just want to be done with this thing. And then that building we reopened this year in March as a small group personal training studio. So that's gym number 3, and that's also a vault location. So that business is like at break even. I wish I could tell you that it was further along. But like that's total transparency of where that's at. So that's gym number 3.
Wow. I'm gonna drink some caffeine just after hearing all that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You definitely should.
wow. Um, oof. I have so many places I want to go. Lisa, do you have any questions or anything you want to ask before I start talking about, working in the business versus on the business and things like that?
Well, this is a little bit of a side question, but I mean, where is your health at that point? That's a different point of interest, but because you mentioned like a year or
Yeah.
two before that, your heart and so on. So had you over that time been able to kind of quote unquote balance things out a little bit, even though your ambition was obviously still there?
Yeah, so I like again, like pretty open book. So I had started taking medication for stress and anxiety in 2021. So remember when I told you that my pricing was messed up at location number 1? So
Yeah.
I didn't listen to my mentor. So like there's a certain way that you correct or where you do a price increase, like a blanket across the board. And I had a better idea than following like what had been proven for thousands of gym owners. And I'm like, look, our situation is a little bit different. It'll be fine. And my mentor's like, I highly recommend that we don't do it this way. But like, I will support you if that's what you want to do, because ultimately it's your business, and like, I can't force you to do whatever. And so that I botched that. I lost 53 members in a month that were paying like 120 on average. So like my revenue dropped by like 6,500 overnight, and I got dragged through the mud because people were like, you're not who you said that you were. Like, this is all about the money. And like it was a pretty devastating experience for me. Like career wise, I had never been through something that cut me like that, not because of the money, but it was because of these relationships that now were like out of my life. And so the medication like helped me have like some kind of balance of like my stress. And so there was that. And like, yeah, the heart stuff had kind of gone away because I was no longer like drinking as much caffeine. I was sleeping like maybe 6 hours a night, which, is better than 4. So,
Yeah.
yeah, like I was moving in the right direction from that standpoint, but there was still a lot of mistakes. Like the third location, I wanted that asset, but I didn't really have the time to commit to doing like another gym at that time, especially a different model. So in hindsight, probably wouldn't have done it. But now it has the opportunity to be a really good thing.
For our listeners out there, the way that we opened gyms back in the day, I used to manage them for my mentor Monty that I ended up buying them from. But back in the day, I would open an Anytime Fitness. I would get it up to break even, which was somewhere around, 400 members, 450, somewhere in that range, if I remember right. And these were, 7,000 square feet locations that went on to become 10,000 square feet locations. But I would open them, I'd get them up and making money within a year. And then I'd move to the next location. I'd start from the ground up. And he ended up opening four. Three of those I helped build from the ground up. And there was a little bit of overlap in there. Would you recommend that people start with, well, first of all, let's talk about making money. I think for most gyms, and there's so many different types of gyms, for most gyms, if someone's wanting to make a lot of money, you need to own multiple gyms. Would you agree with that? Or do you feel like there's the opportunity to make a lot of money with one gym? Because all I have the experience with is, a gym of say 500 to 600 members, for example, which can be a pretty good profitable gym, but you need to
Yeah.
own multiple gyms like that to truly make like real, good money, high end money.
Yeah, so it depends on what you would classify as like good money. So
Well
the
into the six figures. I think like if somebody is able
yeah,
to, not gross six figures, put six figures
right.
in the pocket. Like
Yeah.
that's to me, I
Yeah.
think most people listening would think, dude, if I could put six figures in my pocket every year after all bills are paid, like that's pretty good money.
For sure. So I'll show you this. So the business that I work with, Two Brain Business. So every year we produce like a physical book.
Yeah.
It's called the State of the Industry Guide. So we're working on the 2024 version right now. We usually publish it like end of November, beginning of December. You can get it online at our website, which is twobrainbusiness.com. Or if you contributed to this, like we'll mail it out to you. So last year, we had about 15,000 gyms contribute to this data from around the globe. We distill everything into the US dollar. So we have just like one central measuring point. So, of those gym owners, the average gym owner around the globe in profit, which is like what you feed your family with, they made less than $48,000 last
Yeah.
year,
Yeah.
which is just not a lot. The average coach that was full time made like around $33,000. So if you think like, hey, I can go from a coach to being a gym owner and like make so much more money, generally speaking, it's not the case. Now, to answer your question directly, John, can you make 100,000 in profit from a single location? Yes, you can. Like that's the model that we teach at Two Brain.
Yeah.
And you can do it on 150 clients. That's a coaching business. So that's going to be like you're going to have some form of like nutrition coaching, small group, one-on-one, large group, maybe like a youth program as well, maybe sell some supplements, some fat muscle. Like that would be, those would be your revenue streams, and you could make 100,000 in profit there. But again, the average gym owner is not going to do that because they don't have the knowledge, skills, or experience to do it. If you have an access-based gym, which I think like is probably a lot of your audience, like we're physique competitors or retired physique competitors, where they're used to an access-based gym. The startup costs on that is you're going to get an SBA loan, you're going to finance all of your equipment, you need a lot larger space.
Yeah.
Like those are so incredibly hard to get profitable, unless you fall into a situation like what we have in our Cincinnati gym where we're paying, now, rent goes up every year by just a little bit. So we're paying like maybe 2,500 a month now. Like it's a super profitable gym, like usually between
Yeah.
20 and 30,000 a month in terms of profit.
Nice.
But like there's 1,500 members there and our costs are low. We also have two like full-time salaried people on staff, and like a full front desk team that's like there. So we look at those numbers basically daily, and we monitor it very tightly because like at the end of the day, it's a business. I haven't even physically been to that location in over 2 years, but we have good people there that we can
Yeah.
invest in, and they can grow their career in fitness beyond what they thought was ever possible.
Yeah, I know a lot of people I help, they're right there in that range that you had mentioned. Somewhere on average, about 50,000 a year is what you're putting
Yeah.
in your pocket. And that's after all bills are paid. You have a manager running your gym and all that stuff, right? Like that is the average of what I help people with. And I help them move
Yeah.
that needle up to 60 and 70 and 80,000 a year.
Yeah.
For most gyms, and an easy way to look at it is if there's, I'll just use a real quick number. If there's 500 members in a gym, and you're bringing in, well, just look at it this way. If you're bringing in total 25K a month total, and you're
Yep.
keeping 20% of that your net profit, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
You're bringing in what, 5,000 a month. So there's
Yeah.
60,000 a year. Like it's not a ton of I'm rich money. Now, not
Yeah.
everyone needs that much money. They might be happy with that, but I just wanted to point out some numbers real quick. Let's talk about working. I know we don't have a ton of time here. Let's talk about working in the business versus working on the business. So you were working in the business for a
Yeah.
while. Now to
Yep.
get this thing to scale, you're working on the business. What would you say to people that are stuck working in the business who need to be working on the business?
Yeah, you have to ask yourself, like, what identity do you want to have? Do you want to be a a broke gym owner that like is considering other things, like you're driving for Uber and you're delivering Grubhub? Like nothing wrong with doing that, but like,
Right.
is that the identity that you want? Or do you want to have a successful, profitable business where you can comfortably live the lifestyle that you want for you and your family? That's why a business exists. Like people will not like to hear this, but your business exists to serve you and your family first. Then it's your team that supports you in growing this business, and then it's the guests, it's the customers, it's your clients. Like that's the hierarchy. It has to be that way, otherwise the shit does not work.
Yeah.
So like instead of making sure that your bathrooms are the cleanest that they can be, or that your programming is like proprietary, which it's not, or like you're the best coach on the floor, like you need to have a marketing process, you need to have a sales process, you need to have an onboarding process so that these people that are joining, like they know what the next steps are. You have to be able to retain those people with retention systems. You have to have systems so that everything is delivered at the same high level from your team when you're not there. Like if you're going to take a vacation, who's running this business? All of those things have to be in place. You have to look at your numbers. If you don't track your metrics, you're going to get kicked in the mouth repeatedly until you close your doors. And like that's, I've seen this story play out more times than I can count, because like I work with gym owners every single day of my life.
It's working, getting to the point to where you have to step out to work on the business versus in the business. Like I'm in the process of that now, buying a really large business. It's going to go hand in hand with the supplement business, Fat Muscle, right? So like I've got people like Jacob, I've got key leaders in these spots in these key jobs. So I don't have to be in here working on the business, working in the business. I can work on it and I can start to grow and add the next piece to this puzzle and create this, little empire. A lot of people don't know how to do that. They want to constantly stay in the business and control it. And you can only grow so much. And the gym business showed me that years ago. Like
Yeah.
when I had a manager go down or quit, I had to step in for very little money for 3 months to get somebody else hired and in there. And I'm sitting here making
I
well into the
remember.
six figures just writing diets. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing sitting in this gym? Like
Yeah.
I need people in here and I need a backup. So like it taught me a lot about working in the business versus on it. Um,
John, I want to jump in real quick. I
yeah,
know we're going to be a little long on time, but this
I'm
is
okay
this
with
is
that.
for this is for your audience that loves John Gorman the way that I love John Gorman. Like you're one of those leaders, you're one of those mentors in my life. And so like I wasn't there when Fat Muscle first started, but like I remember going to the show in Chicago in 2017 where your son Jay was at the booth, and I came out at lunch because I was like, fuck, this is really cool that like a dad and his son are like doing this together. Like that was a special moment for me to witness. And a lot of times the mentality of like our clients that we coach, or like even online coaches, are like, you got to do like the handwritten notes. Yeah, those things are impactful and those are important. But the days when you were first launching Fat Muscle as a supplement line, where you were, hand stuffing things and you were writing the letters, and like we all feel good to get the letter from John Gorman, it's not scalable. It's
Yeah.
not sustainable. So if you think that he loves you or cares about you any less because he's not the one that's signing the letters, you're wrong. And if I can offer you a different perspective, he actually cares about you more because he wants to give you better products, more products to help you on your health and fitness journey. But for him to do that as the leader and the CEO of this business, he has to put his time into the things that are going to move the needle the most for the organization, which is not stirring, the powder. It's not
Yeah.
slapping the label on the thing. He has to find the right people that have the desire to do that role and to do it at a high level so that you don't get food poisoning from your supplements, that the little scoop is on the top of the thing
Yeah.
that makes everybody happy, right? Like those are the things that you have to go out and find good people, teach and train on the systems so that it's always a good experience, or it's a great experience for fat muscle consumers, regardless of if it's apparel, if it's supplements, or it's, you know, being a diet coach. Like, it doesn't mean that you care less about people. Oftentimes the painful decision, because like as coaches, as people that have been on the floor for a long time, that's where we want to spend our time. Like that's how we came up. You have to do the painful thing, which is remove yourself from that, replace yourself with people that will do it in some cases better than us,
Yeah.
so that we can do the things. Guys, like running a business, owning businesses, like it's a pain in the ass. Like you deal with the shit that nobody wants to touch. And like that's the hat that you wear. And so I just wanted to share that, because I'm sure that some people that have been following you for the last decade, from Team Gorman, Fat Muscle, or they're still part of Team Gorman, like they've seen your evolution as a business owner, and like where you spend your time is not as scalable as it once was, because you have more people that you're responsible for that count on you to feed their families.
Yeah. No,
And
I appreciate that. And that really delves in nicely to what we're talking about with the gyms, because it's very hard to step back as an owner and let other people do something better than you, because, you know, sometimes you just want to control everything. And like I've mentioned him twice now, this is the third time in the podcast. Thank God for Jacob. You know, he's a way
yeah,
better manager than me, way better with systems. Like Jacob is fat muscle. Like this business, it has his DNA. So thank God for people like that. So I can
yeah,
go work on it, not in it.
yeah.
Let's talk about a couple things here real quick. What's the most important thing that you could help gym owners understand that helps them move the needle? And I know that's such a broad question, but what's the most common thing when you go in and help other gym owners, or advice that you could give to move the needle now? Like one thing that you see most people can do better that's going to help.
Yeah, I'll give you three things, and
Yeah.
in order. The first one is they don't have enough leads because they don't have marketing. Like
Right.
there's four ways that you can market your gym. The first one is going to be through organic social media posts. The second one is through emailing your email list. The third one is through a one-to-one referral process, and then also like building local partnerships with businesses in your area that service the avatar that you are trying to attract. And then the fourth thing is running paid ads on Instagram and Facebook. Most people don't know how to do those things, so they don't do them. And they said word of mouth is like how they grow.
Yeah.
And if you ask them how many leads you had last month or for the last 3 months, they're going to say, I don't know. So that ties into the third thing, which is like you have to track your metrics,
Yeah.
because if it's not delivering the outcome you want, then you have to change, right? Like change is going to be painful. It's going to be painful one way or the other. It's either going to be painful because you're going to eat this desk that my computer is on, because you can't pay for food, or it's going to be painful of like you're going to have to evolve as a business owner. And then the second thing that kind of sandwiches in between those is you have to have a true sales process.
Yeah.
You signing somebody up for like a 3-day pass at your access gym, or like a low barrier offer at your coaching facility, and hoping that at the end of the 2 weeks that person just like magically gives you their credit card or their bank account. It does not work that way. That's not a true sales process. Asking them if they want to buy, that is the end of a sales process. But there's like discovery, there's pitch, and then there's closing. There's always going to be objection handling. And it's not like jamming your fist down somebody's throat. It's asking them questions where they can make the decision that they believe is best for them in that moment.
Yeah.
Again, if there's no problem, there is no solution. So if they don't think they need help, then you're not going to sell them anything. But most times people are reaching out like as a lead because they need something from us. We have to have good conversations, which is called like discovery in the sales process, to understand what it is, so we understand how we can help that specific person. Because what you need, John, in your mid 40s is different than what I need in my mid 30s. Like
Yeah.
it's just different. And so if I'm selling the thing that you need, or somebody's selling the thing that you need to me, I'm probably not going to buy it, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't need that thing, because they didn't spend the time asking the right questions to know what I actually needed and what problem they're trying to solve.
Yeah, excellent. We have a couple things we want to cover here. We're going to put all your contact information. We'll get that, and it'll be in the show notes. So if you're listening, you want to get a hold of Matt, whether it's for consulting or help or anything, just ask him how he only sleeps, 6 hours a night and still looks like he's 25. You can message him. All that stuff's in the show notes. I will vouch for Matt. He's a great guy. He always answers everybody. He's very down to earth, and doesn't change with success. So all his contact information will be in the show notes. Let's talk about what current adventures are you on, man? Like it's been fun to watch the evolution of Matt over the years. And I love it because I get fuel from that kind of stuff. You know, you're
Yeah.
like some of these entrepreneurs out there. It's very hard to relate with quote unquote successful entrepreneurs that we see at scale on YouTube because everyone's just out there putting out all the flashiness. They're not showing a lot of the in the trenches true stories like we're showing today.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think people should definitely keep an eye on you. What's next? You got anything fun coming up?
Well, I'll tell this as a quick story. So the mentorship program that I found that helped like transform how I was running my businesses. After that first year, I was like, they've made such an impact on my life that I want to like just raise my hand when they need help.
Yeah.
And so in July of 2022, or July of 21, excuse me, I'd been with them for a year. And the first thing that came up was a sales position. Now, before I started at Target, I had the offer for Target and I had a sales position for like a software company. I wasn't a seller. I didn't want that pressure. So I chose Target and it was a huge blessing for my life. So I was like, ah, man, like a sales position. Now I didn't tell anybody that I was going to like help this business that they needed something, but I told myself. And so I was like, well, honor your word. So I applied for the role, made it to the final stage of the interview, didn't get the role. And I was like, yes, awesome. And they reached out to me at the end of the year and they're like, hey, that position's open again. Are you still interested? I was like, sure. If you guys need help with it, I'll do it. Beginning of 2022, started as a sales rep. First 2 months were terrible. The third month, I put together like a system that I could follow. It really took off, like some of the best sales numbers that the company had ever had. In September, they asked me to take on that team. This is September of 22. And so we blew our numbers out of the water, continue to grow. And the service that we offer is one-on-one coaching to gym owners to help them run better gyms to impact more people in their communities. And so recently we just signed a new agreement to kind of expand that role. So instead of just like front end sales, helping with like build out of the product that we're fulfilling to make it a better service for gym owners to help them continue to ascend as profitable gym owners. Both front end and back end. So that's taking the majority of my time and the majority of my focus. I really love that team. I've found some really amazing leaders that have invested career opportunities into me. And I get to still be a gym owner. And then I get to help gym owners that were in the same shoes that I was in 4 years ago. And it kind of came full circle because, John, I think that oftentimes you have just kind of raised your hand to help, right? And some of these things we kind of fall backwards into of like the right place at like the right time, but it's not, I don't believe in fate. I don't believe in luck. It's like you put yourself in those positions by saying yes to things and like being helpful and adding value. And like, it's not to toot my own horn, but a lot of the times that I've found success, like further on down the road, I did the same thing. I didn't want to fucking sell stuff for Two Brain, but I said like I would help. And that was the thing that they needed help with. And they said I wasn't good enough to do it at first. And now like I'm helping them with all things in in a very large business. We have over 1,000 active clients around the globe that are gym owners that we service, and it's all done one-to-one because your gym needs something different than my gym, and so like that opportunity, they blessed me by giving me that position, but like it was through raising my hand initially, and then I invested in sales mentors specifically for sales to get better at the skills because I was like, I don't have these skills. Like, how do I help gym owners overcome fear when they don't have any money because they're broke? Like, how do we do that? And so like I built up those skills and then I've taught the team and now they're getting better as well. So we can help more people. So that's the biggest project that I have going on right now.
I love it. And I also love, when you step back and you look at someone's journey. And I look at all my friends like this, whether it's yours or it's Jason Theobald or it's Cliff Wilson or anybody that's continued to add new things to their journey and learn new things. It's also how much experience they've built up doing these different things over the years and failing and learn from it and launching successful gyms or supplement companies or whatever it is. And then you get to the point to where people hire you to come help. And that's the thing. And you go speak at events and some people write books and a lot of people don't realize how much experience they really have that they can actually use that to get to the next level, or open another business, or be a consultant. So it's been fun to watch. I'm always going to keep an eye on you, man. You're like, well, we don't talk all the time. I think we may go sometimes a year or two without a text or anything like that. And I need to be better about that. But that's the world of entrepreneurs. Like, we all kind of keep an eye on each other, and then, we have a minute. We're like, hey man, you good? So it's been fun. It's been fun to watch. Everybody go follow Matt, check out his contact information, and they can just get a hold of you, what, pretty much through email. Is that the best way, Matt?
Uh, yeah, email, DM through Instagram is helpful as well. And John, I appreciate your friendship over the years. I appreciate your mentorship. I've always been very proud to say that, like, I'm from the John Gorman coaching tree, because there's a lot of really great coaches that have come from under like your leadership. And like, a lot of people have different personality types than you, which I think is probably a good thing. But like, I've always been proud to point back to you because of the person that you are, and say, like, he's a good man, and that, like, I'm proud to associate with you. So appreciate you bringing me on today and just chopping up, talking business. And also, guys, if you're looking for a book to read, check out Council Wars. That was something that, John, you gave to me, encouraged me to check out. I'm a terrible reader, so I bought the 20-hour Audible book. But it's about Nintendo versus Sega. And if you like competition and you like to learn from business mistakes, it's a great book.
I agree. Great people either listen, read, it doesn't matter. They're always learning more. And by the way, I've read that book 4 times, but I've listened to the audiobook that you're talking about. I keep track of how many times. I'm on my 10th time through. So
Dang.
on my trips to St. Louis and on the way back, I listen and I listen, and I always pull one thing out. So I can't recommend Console Wars enough. But enough about that. We're going to get you back on the podcast at some point. We'll talk about some other things as you continue to progress throughout your career. We appreciate you, Matt. For myself and Lisa, we're out of here. See you guys.
Thanks.